Once upon a time, there was a country that had been through thick and thin. They advertised their abilities to live equally and rapturously. Their rights couldn't be taken away from them. They seized their wishes and had a voice as a people. People from all across the land started to move to this great country. They proudly sang America the Beautiful as they docked ships on their new land. They could now call this land home. Their citizenship brought them wonderful opportunities and rights they had never imagined before in their old countries. America was at the top of the food chain, a promised land of hope. But after a while, it became apparent that the ideals everyone looked up to weren't really as present as they had been told. Racism and sexism flourished. They claimed that certain races weren't included in equality because they weren't considered people. They failed to realize that even people with different colored skin were still people. Women were still independent, and the poor still deserved their rights regardless of the way they lived their lives. Colored men were taken in as slaves and hung for things they hadn't even done. The reputation of African American men was terrible. White men accused them for various acts of rape and murder on their helpless wives and children, and they were hung for things that had never even occurred, just because of their skin color? After much fighting, in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that all persons held as slaves within the Confederate States are and henceforward shall be free. In 1865, much happened. On April 9th, the Civil War ended. April 14th, Lincoln was assassinated. Then the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, prohibiting slavery on December 6th. In 1868, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, defining citizenship. Any individual born or naturalized in the United States are American citizens, including those born as slaves, which annihilated the Dred Scott case, which had ruled that all blacks were not citizens in 1857. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave blacks the right to vote and elected the country's first American senator, Hiram Revels. In 1955, a young black boy named Emmett Till was brutally murdered for whistling at a white woman in Mississippi, which helped spur the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat at the front of the colored section to a white passenger, which led to buses being desegregated on December 21, 1956. Then, on August 28th, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom happened, and Martin Luther King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. On July 2, 1964, President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, prohibiting discrimination of all kinds based on race, color, religion, or national origin. In October, Martin Luther King received the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1968, on April 4th, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Legally, African Americans gained their equal rights and are now equal members of society. It took a lot of work to get there. Even though their rights are equal, discrimination still happens today. There have been a lot of ups and downs in African American history. For instance, we would pass a new law to prevent discrimination, and soon someone would be killed. But at least in the long run, rights became equal, and that's what matters. Now let's talk about the women. By 1918, 15 states had granted women the right to vote, with California being the first in 1969. By 1985, every state had adopted a law allowing couples to divorce by mutual consent. In 1970, U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that jobs held by men and women need to be substantially equal, but not identical, to fall under the protection of the Equal Pay Act. On June 3rd of 1972, Title IX of the Education Amendments banned sex discrimination in schools. As a result, the enrollment of women in athletics increased dramatically. In 1973, the Supreme Court established a women's right to safe and legal abortion. Many advances in feminist power and equalities have been made, yet in 2008, women only earned 77% to the male dollar, nearly half a century after it became illegal to pay women less because of their sex. The ideal of equality has not fully been met yet, but we are trying. Now, on to democracy. Democracy has two different meanings. Meaning number one being the political. A democratic society is one in which the citizens of the state choose their leaders. Yes, that is a possible political party one can be a part of in the United States. Now, meaning number two, the social. In this case, democracy is the idea that people can determine their own personal relationships without state interference. This includes the choice of locale, profession, religion, and other forms of assembly, and of course, mate. Now, the social definition of democracy is not present at all. You can choose your own locale if the state lets you and if you have enough money. Profession, if you are allowed to get into a college that teaches you said profession, and if the economy is able to give you a job at that time. Religion, yes, but that doesn't mean you are free to practice your own religion. And mate, yeah, as long as it's a person of the opposite sex. If you want to choose the same-sex partner in all legalities of the term, you can forget about it, especially in the 20th century. Now, opportunity. The ability to achieve your dreams and do what you strive to do with your life. Opportunity is easy if you're a white male with a lot of money, not so easy if you're really anyone else. In the past, opportunity was not present for many minorities. You can look at opportunity as classism at its finest. The problem with opportunity is this. Until the American people can get past their biases towards certain minorities, such as women, other races, poor, and the LGBTQ community, opportunity cannot be completely present in America. Because although it may be a nice thought that anyone can achieve their greatest desires, it depends on the class in which you have been represented. Whether or not that desire is achieved has and continues to be based on the amount of money one holds in their pockets. Now, liberty. Liberty is being free to choose your own actions, make your own plans, and act on your own beliefs and values. This ideal has not been lived up to. People of all religions and beliefs have not been able to act on their own beliefs and values. Artists' works have been frowned upon, and books have been left unpublished because of the beliefs and values they adhere to. And the last, rights. Our constitutional rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We do have the right to live, but as for the liberty and pursuit of happiness, let's see. Liberty, as said before, has not been lived up to. The pursuit of happiness depends on your own personal happiness, really. If being rich and prosperous in the world is your version of happiness, then it depends on where you come from, who you are, and what your beliefs are. If happiness for you is seeing everyone in the world die, then no, that right is not given to you. For some, the pursuit of happiness is a right, for others, only a fantasy. At the time the founding ideals were stated, they were not at all being met, in any way whatsoever. Hence the word ideal. The definition of ideal is a standard of perfection or excellence, or a conception of something in its perfection. Now, as many people have said, nothing's ever perfect, so maybe we will never live up to these ideals, because if nothing's perfect, they're not possible. But hopefully, someday, America can be as close to the perfect as possible.